The story kicks off in a medieval world where our main guy, Rio, wakes up inside an empty cottage. No furniture, no cozy bed, just a table, 2 books, and a lonely knife. But does he read the books or arm himself? Nope. He steps outside for some fresh air instead. Classic protagonist move. Surrounded by towering mountains, Rio checks his hands and mutters, "Water, come forth," and bam, a little splash of water appears. Magic confirmed. But how did we get here? A few days earlier, Rio found himself floating in a white, endless void. Before he could panic too much, an angel appears, reads his mind like an open book, and reassures him that he's not in the afterlife yet. The angel, whom Rio mentally nicknames Michael, cheerfully admits he's been lonely in this realm for years, but also breaks the news that Rio got flattened by truck Kun back on Earth. Ouch. Rio, being genre savvy, immediately realizes he's getting reincarnated. He tells Michael he just wants a slow, peaceful life. Michael says, "Sure, buddy," and reincarnates him in a place called Faya Magical World where only 20% of people can use magic. Lucky for Rio, he's one of them, and he's best matched with water magic probably because of that chill lifestyle request. Michael drops him into a cottage in the middle of the Rondo Forest. He stocked the place with food and 2 books, one about the world and one about magic. After actually reading the book finally, Rio learns how to summon water and starts getting the hang of magic. He even figures out that he doesn't need to say spells out loud, just imagine them. And boom, magic happens. Not bad for a beginner. He uses his water magic to fill up the bathtub, only to realize the water's freezing cold. Time to make fire. He tries the good old caveman method and fails miserably. But then, using some high school chemistry, he splits water into hydrogen and oxygen, accidentally freezes it into ice, then uses the ice as a magnifying glass to focus sunlight and start a fire. Fire unlocked. Bath achieved. Clean and relaxed, he realizes he'll soon run out of food. But going outside means monsters, and that tiny knife Michael gave him isn't going to cut it literally. So, he starts working on attack spells. His first attempt, Water Ball, is about as threatening as a water balloon. He tweaks it into Water Jet, but it still can't damage a tree. He switches focus to Ice Magic Stronger, but way harder to control. After days of trial and error, he becomes decent enough to form ice crystals, even if he still can't shoot them like projectiles. With time running out, he sharpens one into a makeshift spearhead and ventures into the forest. While gathering herbs, a lesser boar charges at him. Rio freezes in fear, pun intended, but just before becoming bacon bait, he snaps out of it, slides away, ices the ground, and skewers the boar with icicles. Victory, sort of. Turns out, lesser boars are the weakest monsters in the forest. Back home, he reads up on more monsters. Dragons? Run. Akuna? Don't even try. Just pray. Still, Rio's not giving up. The next day, he finds some fruit, and just when things are looking up, an assassin hawk dive bombs him. It uses invisible air magic, and he realizes running is pointless. So he traps it in ice. Thinks it's dead. Surprise? It's not. The hawk escapes with only one eye. Days pass. Rio trains like crazy, fighting weak monsters, fishing, refining his ice powers until he can slice through mountains. But every night, he returns to where he saw a Dullahan, a spooky, headless warrior with smoke pouring from its neck. They spar regularly, and while Rio keeps losing, he suspects the Dullahan is trying to make him stronger. One day, the Dullahan forges an ice sword and silently offers it to him. Rio accepts. Teacher vibes achieved. Then, the hawk comes back. Bigger, blacker, and angrier than ever. Yep, it evolved. It blasts through all of Rio's defenses like paper. In desperation, Rio grabs the Dullahan's sword and finally defeats the hawk for good. He gives it a moment of respect, realizing it evolved just to fight him. A worthy rival. But the world's not done with surprises. A dragon shows up and talks. Telepathically, Rio's shocked. The dragon's shocked he can use telepathy again. They have a chat, and when Rio shows the ice sword, the dragon instantly recognizes it. It's the sword of the Fairy King. Wait, what? The dragon asks what Rio did to earn such a gift, but Rio has no clue. They part ways, and Rio continues living his not-so-slow life. Meanwhile, Mr. Angel upstairs checks Rio's status screen and realizes he missed something huge. Rio has eternal youth. The last guy didn't have that, so Michael didn't notice. And as Rio enjoys his new powers, a mysterious red-haired boy washes up by the riverbank. Who is he? One day, Rio heads down to the beach. When he gets there, he finds a wrecked ship just chilling on the sand. Curious, he checks it out and spots a guy lying next to it. But then, from the other side of the beach, he hears someone groaning. Turns out, someone did survive. That survivor is Abel, who thought he was going to die at sea after a giant sea monster wrecked his ship during a massive storm. But plot twist, he wakes up in a warm bed, all his stuff neatly placed on a nearby table. He grabs his gear and heads outside, hoping to get his bearings, but all he sees is trees. Right then, Rio strolls out of the house like it's totally normal to be living in the middle of nowhere, half naked in a loincloth. Abel's confused and also mildly concerned about Rio's fashion choices, but before asking anything too rude, he thanks him for saving his life. Rio shrugs it off, saying all he did was carry Abel home. Unfortunately, Abel was the only one left alive. Abel isn't too broken up about it, though they were all illegal smugglers. Rio doesn't totally get what a smuggler is, but whatever time for lunch, Abel's clearly starving. Over their meal, Abel can't hold it in anymore and asks why Rio is dressed like a caveman. Rio calmly explains that he's broke and also isolated. There's literally nowhere nearby to buy clothes even if he had money. Abel's surprised, but honestly impressed. For a guy living in the woods with no resources, Rio's got it pretty together. Abel asks if the meat they're eating was caught with that knife on the table, but Rio says that's just for butchering. He hunts using water magic. To prove it, he casually fills a jug with water. Abel is floored. Where he's from, even in the Central Plains, only half the people can use magic. Rio's surprised too. He was told it was rare. After lunch, Abel says he wants to check something back at the shipwreck. Rio agrees to guide him. On the way, Abel notices Rio doesn't use a magic staff and assumes it's another money issue. Feeling a bit guilty, he offers to handle any monsters they run into as payback for Rio's help. Rio tries to tell him that he can hold his own just fine, but Abel insists. When they get back to the wreck, all the bodies are gone. Rio guesses some monster probably cleaned up the mess. Lucky for Abel that Rio found him first. Abel looks around but doesn't find what he was looking for. When Rio asks what's next, Abel says he needs to regroup with his friends, but they're far north, and he's not even sure how far south he is now. It's going to be a long trip. So he turns to Rio and asks, "Wanna come with me?" Rio is caught off guard but agrees. He's curious about the world beyond the trees anyway. But first, he needs to wrap up a few things, so they agree to leave the next morning. That night, Rio heads out into the forest alone. Abel finds it weird, especially since Rio said there's no one else around, but decides not to pry. Turns out, Rio's meeting Delahan, his forest sparring partner. This might be their last match for a while, so Rio plans to go all out. They duel, and though Delahan is still better, Rio puts up a good fight and even manages to push him back a little. After the match, Delahan gifts Rio a special robe as a farewell present. Rio is genuinely touched. The next morning, the journey begins, but almost immediately, they run into a boar monster. Abel tells Rio to step back, then uses a flashy move called Total Impalement to skewer the beast like a shish kebab. Rio's jaw drops. He's never seen a non-magic move that strong. Abel explains that people who can't use magic fight with combat skills. Later, they reach a marsh full of lizardmen. Abel wants to avoid a fight, But while circling around, Ryo senses the lizards creeping up on them. He warns Abel, who preps for battle, but Ryo decides to take over. With a flick of his hand, he launches a flurry of ice spears and wipes out the lizard squad. Abel is speechless. Afterward, Abel asks how Ryo managed to cast multiple spells at once. Apparently, most mages can only do one at a time. Ryo's confused because he has never had that problem with water magic. Ryo then offers Abel a glass of water, and Abel notices the incantation is different this time. When asked why, Ryo just plays it cool. Truth is, he doesn't need incantations. Eventually, they leave the forest and enter rocky terrain, only to find out they've accidentally wandered into a rock golem hotspot. Rocks start flying, and Ryo is fascinated. These golems look nothing like he expected. Abel tries using total impalement again, but the golem just regenerates. Ryo figures they need a one-shot knockout, so he summons a giant ice cube from the sky and crushes the golems with it. They find a huge magic stone in one of the crushed golems and decide to keep it. Abel mentions that monsters like golems are often found in dungeons. Dungeons? Ryo lights up like a kid at a candy store. Why didn't Abel mention dungeons earlier? Luckily, there's one in Lune, the very town they're headed for. On the way, they chat about dwarves and elves. Dwarves are short, strong, and love crafting. There are a bunch in Lune. Elves, on the other hand, mostly stay in forests and avoid people. Abel only knows one in Lune. Suddenly, Ryo senses something terrifying. A giant griffin appears. Yeah, they're in trouble. Thinking fast, Ryo tosses out some meat. Abel follows suit. The griffin snatches up the snacks and flies away, apparently satisfied. Abel says griffins haven't been seen near human lands in centuries, so if they're showing up here, that mountain is probably holding back all kinds of nightmare fuel. And sure enough, their next encounter is a flock of wyverns. Abel wants to detour, but Ryo's had enough. He jumps out and slams the wyverns with icicle spears like he's playing Whack-A-Dragon. Abel is amazed. Normally, it takes 20 adventurers to take down even one wyvern. After hacking their way through more beasts, they finally reach the other side of the mountain. Ryo and Abel are back on the road, arguing like an old married couple over whether fighting wyverns was a good idea. Ryo? Totally cool with it. Abel? Never wants to see another flying lizard again. Still, he's glad Ryo did it, since they now have a whole bag of shiny magic stones worth a fortune. Eventually, they head far north and spot a narrow road up ahead. Classic clue that a town's nearby. Abel, seeing that the road leads straight to something that looks like Mount Everest, votes to go west instead. He seems to recognize the snowy mountains but keeps it to himself. All he tells Ryo is that following the path east leads to a town called Kayati. Ryo's hyped he's dying to sleep in an actual bed. Abel's surprised that Ryo, the monster-fighting caveman, enjoys soft pillows and hot food. Abel starts telling him about Kayati's local food, saying its chef's kiss amazing. When they arrive, they hit up a restaurant. While Ryo stuffs his face with curry and rice, Abel explains how adventurer guilds work. Register, get an ID, trade loot, and gain access across the country. Ryo's intrigued, especially when he hears that being an alchemist helps, and since he's a chemistry nerd, he's already sold. While eating, he's also stunned that this fantasy world has curry. He whispers to himself that in most isekai anime, the hero has to invent modern food from scratch. Here, it's already on the menu. Blessed. Ryo becomes a total curry mukbanger, ordering seconds, thirds. You get the picture. The next morning, he's still gushing about it, making Abel wonder if this guy ever ate real food before. When Ryo jokes that Abel might be hiding more delicious secrets, Abel reacts a little too weirdly suspicious. On the way to their next town, Lon, they stroll through peaceful farmlands. At the gate, the guard is shocked to see Abel alive. News had spread that he was missing. Abel has no time to explain and just says Ryo saved him. The guard shakes Ryo's hand like he's a national hero. Since Ryo's not registered, Abel pays his entry fee again. As they walk in, Rio realizes Abel is kind of a big deal around here. They head straight to the Adventurers Guild. Abel explains the ranking system, saying Rio can probably skip F rank thanks to his endorsement. He might even start at D rank. Abel also warns that dumping all their magic stones at once could crash the economy, so they'll talk to the guildmaster first. The moment they enter the guild, it's like a celebrity just walked in. Everyone is ecstatic that Abel's alive. Rio, not wanting to get in the way of the Abel fan club, steps outside for a walk. That's when an elf girl spots him and notices his clothes, calling them the Fairy King's outfit. Rio's like, "Fairy, what now?" But she's in a rush and leaves, promising they'll meet again. Abel finds him and pulls him back inside, publicly introducing Rio as the hero who saved his life. After the crowd settles down, they go to the receptionist. Abel pulls rank and asks her to register Rio as a D rank adventurer. She's stunned. No one from Abel's elite Crimson Sword party has ever done this before. She agrees, but says Rio still needs to do a physical assessment. Meanwhile, Abel wants to meet the guildmaster, Hugh, the loud and excitable guildmaster, who crashes into the room thrilled to see Abel alive. Abel asks if surviving that mountain death trap is enough proof of Rio's skills. Hugh agrees and says they'll bump Rio's rank. Before they can finish, Abel's old teammates Lynn, Warren, and Ria barge in. Lynn drops to her knees in shock, crying tears of disbelief. Abel tells them how Rio saved his life, and Hugh gives the group privacy while asking Nena, the clerk, to handle Rio's paperwork. After some Q&A with Nena skills, level, dungeons, etc., Rio signs up for a dungeon class, learns there's a clock in the city WoW, and finds out he can stay in the guild lodge for 300 days. He registers, prints his adventure card, and heads out. Hugh tells Abel how chaotic things were while he was gone. Meanwhile, Abel takes Rio to sell their magic stones and buy him some new clothes and a staff. Rio appreciates it, but questions the staff. He prefers his tiny sword. Abel thinks it's more of a butter knife, but Rio insists it's fine. They chat some more, and Rio learns the days, weeks, and months in this world are just like Earth's. With all the Earth-like things around, especially the curry, Rio starts suspecting another Earthling may have reincarnated and left their mark on this world. Later that day, Abel drags Rio to his welcome party. They drink, laugh, and party like there's no tomorrow. The next morning, Rio is hungover and gets escorted back to the lodge by Nana, who teases him about Abel's brother, Ra, clinging to him all night out of gratitude. At the lodge, Na introduces Rio to his new roommates Niels and Ito. Niels instantly starts simping over Na, while Ito rolls his eyes and greets Rio instead. They all agree to keep things chill between them. Then Na brings in one more roommate, Ian, a 16-year-old who lost her parents and now wants to become an adventurer. Rio's now got a full adventuring squad in his dorm. Meanwhile, Abel tells his team just how insane Rio's magic is. Ice magic. No staff, wyvern slaying. Lynn is in denial. That kind of magic, she says, defies all logic. Ria mentions a legend, the Inferno Magician. But that's just a fairy tale, right? They worry about Rio's power and wonder if he might join the Empire. Abel reassures them that's not happening. Rio hates the Duhai Empire with a passion. Back at the lodge, Rio laughs and jokes with his new roommates, quietly amazed at how crazy his life has become.